Next injury, Tom, not season ending, but apparently Deontay Johnson could miss 4 to 5 weeks. I've seen it really depends how things go. I'll let you talk about this, but also notice, Tom, their bye is week 6. So I could easily see this as a situation where maybe he's not back till week 7, but has a hamstring. What's going on with Deontay, Tom?
It must be a pretty significant hamstring. We're definitely looking at a moderate grade 2 if that's the timeline they're giving us, 4 to 5 weeks. And a grade 2 injury indicates that there is true tearing of the muscle. Usually about 10 to 50% of the muscle fibers are affected. And that's going to impact ability to generate strength. We're going to see a major decline in strength when there's that much injury. And usually that takes about 4-ish or so weeks to heal. So that is probably an appropriate time frame. And especially with you pointing out week 6 is their bye, we know the hamstring recurrence rate is so high. Why would they rush him back before that bye? Like, just let him go until week 7. So he's going to be hanging out on your IR for a while, but don't drop him. He can definitely be productive in the second half of the season. Recurrence, obviously, something we're going to have to be mindful of. I probably wouldn't play him the first week he's back, but I mean, we'll talk about that several weeks from now when it gets to that time. He's a very, very quick, speedy receiver, so definitely going to see a little bit more load on the hamstring with that, but he's really not a deep threat. So it's not like it's George Pickens, his teammate, who's always running 50 yards down the field, because we know that it takes time, it takes distance to get up to that peak sprint speed, which is where the load on the hamstring is at its greatest. So not what we want to hear. Not the end of the world, though. Keep him on your IR. Don't drop him, and he could be useful second half of the season.
And Tom, you said he's a grade 2. I forget. You're gonna have to remind me. What's the
that's what it sounds like. They did not announce that, but that time frame tells me it's probably a grade 2 injury.
Okay, and then off that, if it's like fully torn, what's the high? Is it 3, 4? What's the I forget what the high is?
Yeah. So sometimes if it's a grade 3, sometimes it'll be surgery. Sometimes they'll try to do conservative, but it's bad. Like that would be.
I'm not saying that's what this is. I was just curious. Okay, cool. And I was buying into the Steeler hype a little bit, Tom, but they looked, I mean, at least this past week, they looked really incapable, again, against a really strong 49ers defense. But just, again, I always like to talk fantasy implications, right? That's what I do. Maybe Allen Robinson can be fantasy relevant again. Might be worth the pickup, Tom. 5 for 64, a team high 8 targets. Maybe a low-end flex play if you're desperate. I mean, on this offense, Calvin Austin was involved. 6 catches, Pickens with 5. But really, the yardage was really bad. Pickett didn't play so well, but Steelers face another real tough matchup this week, Cleveland on Monday night. So I would probably stay away from playing just about everybody on this team, maybe Najee, but it's tough. It's tough. And again, we got to wait for some clarity there as well. A lot of good information. So Jerry Jeudy, he has a hamstring injury, sat out last week. What's his level of activity looking like, Tom? Can we expect Jerry Jeudy back this week?
Limited in practice today, about 3 weeks out from injury, and Sean Payton actually said that he was, close to playing last week. Receivers average missing 1.8 games with a hamstring, but of course that's so dependent on the severity of it. And Judy's looked really bad. I mean, he was carted off the field, but apparently he's responding really well to treatment, and he's able to get on the field today. I think it's worth monitoring how he does over the course of the week, because even if he does play, I don't know that I'm ready to start him yet. Just seeing how significant it looked of an injury. Also, from a statistical standpoint, receivers see a decline of about 12% decline in their fantasy production and a 16% decline in their snap rate in the first game back. That's not major, but for someone like Jeudy, who's kind of like a fringe receiver 3 flex, that may be the difference in him versus someone else on your roster. And he's going to be at a high risk for re-injury if he does play this week. Just simply, that's just how hamstrings are, especially when they were significant enough to force you to be carted off the field. So another one that I'll keep updates on throughout the week. But even if he plays, I'm not sure that I'm ready to trust him this week.
I'm certainly not. I'm not trusting him yet. It could be limited on snaps, or it could be limited again just because he's coming off this injury. And we got to wait and see. Russ looked okay, but no one else really stepped up. Tom, some of these stat lines, man, unbelievable. The leading receiver on the Broncos last week, Samaje Perine, with 37 yards. Okay, lovely. Cortland Sutton didn't do too much. I mean, Marvin Mims, obviously still a rookie playing his first game, but that team needs Jerry Jeudy back. Like they need.
They sure do.
They do. So again, I think you wait, but then hopefully week 3, we see a little production week 2. All right, folks. On to Christian Watson. Another guy, a lot of hamstrings. The hamstring injury, is his injury situation improving? What do you got on Watson?
Well, it doesn't seem like it because he did not practice today. And this is the same hamstring that he's injured in the past. So that's not good. We know that when hamstring or with really any muscle, after it gets injured, it's not going to heal at the same capacity that it once was. There's going to be some scarring in there that's not quite as strong as the native tissue. That's part of the reason that exacerbations are so common. That's one of many reasons. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. But also, he's a speed guy. So he's downfield burner. He's going to be loading that hamstring more than someone who's a possession receiver. So more likely to have that re-injury when he returns, or just to be affected by it if he returns and his hamstring has not fully regained its strength and explosiveness. And the same stats that we listed earlier apply here: a 12% decline in fantasy production and a 16% decline in snap rate for receivers in their first game back from a hamstring injury. So he's another one that I need to see him play for a week before I start him. That's my take on it. Other people probably drafted him in like the 5th round as their receiver 2. And if you don't have someone great to fill in, you may be tempted to play him if he plays. But I'm on the side of, let me see it from him for a week. Let me see him get through a game before I start him.
I agree with that too. And I know for a lot of these injuries, including Watson, I've been saying, and I know we're not all fortunate to have unlimited depth. Like we might be in a situation where you have to play Jeudy or you have to play Watson. But again, this is a guy that I'm trying, if I can, to actively avoid until we see a little bit of production. Of course, there's going to be a decline, but even without him, Packers thumped the Bears 38-20. Jordan Love looking pretty damn good, really efficient, man. 15 for 27, 245, 3 touchdowns. But just without Watson, it's going to be tough to predict the wide receivers here. And again, I'm not necessarily offering you suggestions of who to play, but I'm saying I probably wouldn't play Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs. I'm just not sure about them. But a guy I like, Tom, one of your bold predictions was a rookie tight end is going to do well. Luke Musgrave, he looked the part first week, man. He had 4 targets, 3 catches, 50 yards. Like, I'll take that for a tight end that I probably drafted in the 15th round in his first game, right? So he's a guy I think that you could maybe play as a real low-end tight end. He's going to get some targets. But, they are a little bit injured, this offense.